All right, so we introduce ourselves. We are Adventist Youth, Real Connections. My name is Madeline.
Hi, my name is Josue Hilario.
And I'm Kevin Moreno.
All right. So that was a quick introduction. This is our first podcast, like Zoom meeting, group together thing. I don't know, but we're gonna try it out and see if this is something that we should continue. Yeah, I think it'll go really well. I always enjoy podcasts, so we'll see if we're any good recording it.
I'm excited to do something kind of new and different, so I think
me too.
All right, so our topic for this week is how to be a Christian as a young person. So we have a list of a few questions. I believe I added a couple from our list earlier this week. So I'll just go through them all, and then we'll start from the first one, and we'll just work our way down the list. So the questions are, how do you keep your relationship with God going? What is the hardest thing about being a Christian? What is the best thing about being a Christian? How do you deal with doubt? What is the best way to share your faith, and why can Christians be afraid to share it? How solid does my faith in God need to be before I can share it? And how do you maintain integrity around your non-Christian friends? So we'll start with the first one, and I'll just repeat it. How do you keep your relationship with God going?
Well, for me, every time I hear that question, like, how do we keep a relationship with God going? Because I always think about my experience when I first started my relationship with God. It was like a high. It was like everything was feeling so well, and it was so easy. Like, I woke up in the morning, read my Bible, like the prayers just felt a lot more intense, and so I felt like He was right there. And that's like always the beginning for most people. And then afterwards, once like life starts happening and you kind of get out of that high that you had, it kind of starts getting a little harder. And it becomes more than just the butterflies. Like in a relationship, for example, when you first start kind of dating, it's like you're so infatuated with each other. You just want to be with each other. But then afterwards, like the butterflies kind of start to go away. And it's like it's more than love that will hold together. It's like the friendship that you guys have. It's the emotional connection, everything. It's not the crush, the looks anymore. It's a lot more than that. And that's kind of like with a relationship. Once it gets to that point, you either just fall down and never get back up, or you fall down and you eventually get back up, because you're gonna fall down. It's not like you're never gonna fall down. You're going to. It's just all about getting back up. And like, to get back up, I guess it's different for many people. For me, I feel like it helped, like doing something for other people, like helping people and ministering God's word to other people is what helped me get back up to where I was.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I agree with that.
That's for me, I guess. To continue to build my relationship with God, I need to be able to share God's word with other people and actually do something with people and not just be by myself and read the Bible. That worked for the beginning part, but I need to be doing more now, the next level, to get things going.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I think for me, my experience, definitely reading the Bible and praying is a good, foundation. But if you don't act on your faith and you don't act on like what God's telling you to do, look at the disciples, like they talked and they walked with Jesus for 3 years. And then when, Jesus finally left, he told them to go and, spread the gospel to the whole world. So, if you're a Christian, like that's, you got to be sharing your faith. You got to be going out and you got to be, being a witness for Christ. And I know for me, like I feel the closest to God when I'm helping another person. Whether it's like we have a homeless ministry at our church, whether it's doing that or serving the community, in different ways, just helping people who are downtrodden and need help, I feel like is the best way to maintain your relationship.
Yeah, whenever I think about this question about or just thinking about our relationship with God, one thing that I've been thinking about over the years is like everybody has a relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
It's now the quality or the kind of relationship that people have, right? Somebody could be completely like rejecting God like altogether, and that's a relationship in and of itself. Like, and I want you. The other side is, of course, like a positive relationship, which is what we're talking about right now. And that is, being able to be connected with Jesus. And I like what Josue had said about it being like a relationship. I remember when my wife and I first started dating, like I wanted to be around her. Like I wanted to be with her, like both her and I back and forth. And then after a while, once you start getting married and spending time with one another, it's more than just like infatuation.
Mm-hmm.
It's now you have to build on it. Like the infatuation or the initial, like you could say the spark. Now talking about our relationship with God is that some people I think chase this high of like, oh well, like I don't have a relationship with God because I don't feel it anymore, so then I must be like pushed away. But no, like there's an opportunity to grow, and maybe the relationship needs to develop. And I think that's I think that comes to my mind about like we strive, like Josue said, like you said too, Madeline. We strive by doing other things for other people. I think about what Jesus had said about at the end of time, he'll say to some people, like, I didn't know you. And they're like, we did this, and this, Jesus. But, like, they didn't have a relationship with Jesus. Whereas others who were accepted by Jesus, like, they had a relationship even when they were doing all of these things in the name of God or Jesus. So I think that doing things for other people really is the outward expression of how we are, what our relationship is like with God. Like if I'm just thinking about like me and not thinking about somebody else, and there's something wrong with my relationship with God, because that relationship that I have with God should then spread out to other people. So,
yeah, I think it can go both ways. Like you said, people can be doing outreach and they can be doing ministry without having that initial tangible relationship with God. They could just be doing it because, look at me, look at all the good I'm doing, or this is what we've always done on Saturday afternoons. You got to have both the, initial real relationship of, praying daily, having, Bible studies and reading your Bible, but also, that outwardly active service, I think is important. So, yeah.
Like what the Bible is telling you to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just keeping it in your head.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go to the next question. So the next one is, what is the hardest thing about being a Christian? I don't know who wants to start.
Yeah, I can start with that one. I think in my mind, what the hardest thing about being a Christian is like we live in a post-Christian world. Meaning like the world doesn't, like the solution to the problems of the world, like or like the thought that people have with regards to Christianity beforehand, like it was like solid. Like people back in the day, like they were all Christian. Now, like you find a huge amount of people who don't label themselves as Christian or don't label themselves as anything really. They're just, you could say maybe an agnostic. And so then trying to communicate the gospel or communicate your Christianity, like you almost kind of have to do it like in sneaky kind of ways. And I think that that's what's hard, is that like we're supposed to be proud and happy. And I'm not ashamed of being a Christian, but I think that like when you share, hey, I'm a Christian, like you automatically get labeled as like these certain things, or you like assumptions that come with you as a Christian, right? And so then like you almost have to walk kind of on eggshells, and I think that that's why the Bible too says that like by your fruits you will know people, right? So if I'm a Christian and I'm doing things that are in the like that a Christian would do, then I guess I'm okay. But once I start getting labeled, then it's a lot more difficult to share. I don't know. That's just my thought.
Yeah. No, I think so too. Like, I think there are so many people that say that they're Christian and then they act like, you know, they don't even act like they know God, you know, doing stuff that people who don't believe in God do. So like, what's the difference? You know, there's no difference. And I think a lot of people associate Christianity with, you know, hypocrites and, you know, some of the worst people on earth, you know, because, you know, in history, a lot of bad stuff has happened, you know, came from Christians. So, yeah, I think, yeah, just like walking on eggshells and like, I don't know, people just thinking that they don't get to know you and for who you are and what you believe in. They just think, oh, you're a Christian, then you must be, you know, goody two shoes and all that. So, yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the hardest things is just like people misjudging you.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's probably, obviously it's different for everybody, kind of, because everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses. Like, the hardest thing for me would be probably a hard thing for somebody else. For example, like there's a lot of hard things about being a Christian. And I feel like one that stands out to me, and I believe a lot of other people my age, would be like the not really knowing about like the freedom or the definition of freedom. I guess thinking that Christianity is not freedom, because the Bible talks about, you know, abstinence, about so many different things, and people think that Christianity isn't free because of how constricting they feel about it. Or I don't know, I guess they just don't really look at the Bible the right way. That's like one of the hardest things, because I have friends who are Christians. I guess they say they're Christians and they choose to do other things that a Christian wouldn't normally do, because they want to take advantage of their youth, you know, was what they say. They want to take advantage of their youth. They're young. They want to experience the world. They want to be free is the word that they use. So they say that being away from the church or away from the Bible is being free. And they think that the Bible is what's constricting them to feel that freedom. So I feel like that misconception of like freedom is probably one of the hardest things about being a Christian, because a young person like us three, we're all young. Like, it's like we're seeing all of our friends do all these things, and we're only seeing their happiness from the outside, from their exterior. And because we only see that, we think that it's so liberating, but we know that we can't do that, and we have that guilty conscience. And then, I don't know, it's just, we have that misconception of freedom because of looking at other people and their exterior happiness. We don't know what's going on the inside. You know, they have their reasons of why they do things, and we don't see that. Nobody sees what's on the inside. They just see on the exterior. Even if they want to see what's on the inside, it's hard. You know, God can truly only know what's on the inside. That's probably one of the hardest things for me, kind of not looking at those things and not thinking about or not coveting what they have, and just being thankful for what I have right now and being present every moment. Because I have a tendency to just think about, man, I'd be so happy if I had this or that. But like, happiness is not based off of what you have or what you're doing. It's all like in your mind. You create that happiness. And that's something that's really hard for me as a Christian. And reading the Bible and actually doing what the Bible is telling me to do.
Yeah. I was also thinking too about how hard it is personally for me, like how hard it is to daily communing with God, sitting down and, reading my Bible. Because some days it's just like your day is just so busy and you get home and, it's time for bed and you're just so tired. And I'm thinking, man, like I don't want to sit here for half an hour. I just want to go to bed, And, sometimes it's even hard to pray too. Because I feel like, if I'm not really, really, really thinking about what I'm trying to say to God, I'll just be on autopilot and I'll be like, dear God, thank you for the day. Please bless this and this person, things like that. So I think that is another hard thing. I think a lot of people struggle with as well is like, how do you just like have the time to read your Bible? How do you have a Bible study? Like where do you start? I think that can kind of throw people off too. So, but yeah.
I want to say something else a little bit. I think you guys hit a lot of things on the head that I didn't even think about. Like what Josue had just said about like being present in the moment, and then being able to then, you could say, even just be jealous of what other people are able to experience. Like you have to like take off the hat of Christian and put on like my youthful hat, and then like I'm good and I can do my thing and then I can put my hat back on. But there's freedom, in Christianity. I think another thing that I think about is when we do stand up for something that we believe in. I think that lately, like you hear through social media or through just society that you have to be you, and like you have to be proud of who you are and all of that. And that's good and that's fine. But I think that there isn't, I guess going back to my point, like that we get labeled when I am a Christian and I say, hey, I'm proud of being a Christian, then it's like, oh, okay, well, like, no, you're not. Like there's restrictions on what I can and cannot do as a Christian. And so then when I stand up for something that I think that is wrong because of my Christianity, because my Christian worldview, then like I have to be brave enough to say, okay, like I'm okay with feeling criticized. I'm okay with being ostracized to a certain extent, because like that's who I am. Like if I'm saying that, if I'm telling people that they should be okay with who they are, then I shall also be willing to give myself grace and standing up for a position that sometimes is not the most popular.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So bouncing off that question, what's the best thing about being a Christian?
Oh, well, that's the best thing for me. I guess there's two things. The first one would be having someone to talk to, because a lot of the things that happen that you experience, you may have a friend that you tell everything to, but you don't really tell 100% of your life to that person, because there's just some part of you that you just want to keep to yourself.
Yeah.
And being able to let that go to God, to someone who you believe is listening to you, is you're able to just let that go. And the fact of just, let's say God is not real. Okay, as an example, just being able to just express that, like with your voice, it makes you think about that a little clearer and process things way better. Now, we believe that God is real, and we know that He's real. We have proof that He's real just by our experiences, and the Bible, which is based off of history and facts. There are books that prove that the Bible is real. And so knowing that you're talking to God, who is listening to you, who is all-knowing, it's refreshing that you're able to talk to someone like that any time of the day. And the second thing would be that freedom because the difference between Christian freedom and non-Christian freedom is, for example, non-Christian freedom is just you do whatever you want, unapologetically. You just do whatever you want. You don't really care about what other people think. You don't really have that guilty conscience. But then in Christianity, you have that freedom because you're not addicted to fulfilling that temporary happiness. Because people who aren't really exercising the Bible are addicted to finding that temporary happiness. When they're not doing something, they're bored. When they're not doing something, they just feel so empty inside. They have to be doing something. But as a Christian, you don't have that, because what you're supposed to be doing is, praying to God and doing things that will glorify Him, that'll make His second coming faster, which is by evangelizing and ministering to other people. And when you're doing that, it's like you don't feel bored when you're not doing anything. You don't feel like you have to do something fun to have fun. You can just have fun being wherever you are, or whatever you're doing. And that kind of freedom is way better, because I can still have fun without doing any of the crazy stuff. I can have fun and genuinely be happy, and for a long time, not just for a short period of time. That's probably one of the best things about being a Christian.
Yeah, I think having that, like, you don't have that empty feeling, you have, like, if you had nobody else in the world that you could fall on, you always would have God, and He always is there for you. I feel like, yeah, I couldn't imagine not having God in my life, He's such a big part of it, and He fills, I don't know, I just think I would be so empty without Him, So I think that's one of the best things about being a Christian is just having, like Josue said, just somebody there for you, somebody that you can share everything with. Also, I think having fellowship as well. I enjoy that. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, having a church family. Yeah, there's just something special about having people that you can worship God with, and you all love the same person. That's pretty cool.
I would say for me, Christianity helps me understand the world and the reality in which I live. And what I mean by that is that there's both good and evil. There's things that break my heart, and I'm like, why is this happening? Like, there's ills in this world. And I think that the Christian perspective or the Christian worldview answers that question of like why evil exists, like what happens with that, like that it's not okay, right? And some people could say, well, if God is, again, like maybe going off on another thing, but like why is there a God who's in heaven and like He's letting these things happen? Well, like the Christian worldview explains that there's free will. If God didn't give people free will to choose to do good or evil, then like He would always he'd be a dictator. Like He'd always, cutting people down, and there'd be no freedom to actually choose, right? And so I think that for me, like that reality of that perspective of understanding what is happening in this world helps me to be able to not be okay with what is happening, but actually know that there's a reason, and also that there's a timeline, that this won't be like that forever. And then beyond that, then also now taking it more personally, like when I have struggles, when like I struggle with something that I don't know, that I know that is wrong, like I know that there's somebody who could help. Like, oh, I can go to counseling, I can do self-help, I can talk with friends and all that stuff. And like, that's good. Like we're meant to live in communities and to grow, but like at the end of the day, like there's some things that I can't do for myself. I can't like break chains of whatever sins I'm in. Mm-hmm. So I think that God is there to help me out. And I know that I can mark down in my mind and say, hey, from this point on, like I've been a different person. And that's not because I did anything special, but because I trusted and because I contributed but there's something that happened in my heart and in my life that I would say. So I would say that those things, I mean, there's a lot of other things, that God loves me and I'm loved and I'm cared for and I'm valued, that I have a community that I live with or that I live in, right? That there's all kinds of people who are part of the family of God. Like, I wouldn't have gotten to know you guys if I wasn't a Christian, right? And so I think that it allows for me to be able to get to know other people that I normally wouldn't know, but because we are united by this bond of Christian belief, then it allows for me to be able to open my horizons to get to know somebody else and to be able to learn to rub shoulders with other people. So.
Mm-hmm. How do you deal with doubt? That's a big question. I feel like that's a hard one because everybody has doubts and everyone has different ways in which they're doubting. I'm assuming this is like doubting your relationship with God. Is he really there? Does he really care about me? Maybe I'm not, like, maybe I don't have a strong enough as a relationship with Christ as I think I do, or even just like when you're around friends who aren't Christian, maybe this isn't like, maybe I don't believe in God. Maybe I don't believe in this lifestyle, I feel like, I struggle with that. Everybody does. How I deal with it is I pray about it. I say, God, I'm really struggling today. I just don't think I'm good enough, or, whatever the doubt may be, laying it at his feet and just being honest with him and just say, I'm having doubts, can you help me? Can you, I know that's the typical, can you show me a sign? But sometimes that, sometimes he answers that, but, telling him that you have doubts and asking for him to help you get through it, I think is how I deal with it. And also talking to, a friend or a pastor or somebody I trust who also believes in Christ, I think is good as well. So.
Yeah, it's hard, like you said, and for me, when I went, it was actually kind of recently that I was kind of going through that. I'm kind of now kind of trying to pick myself up again. But the thing that I actually didn't do that I regret I should have done is I didn't talk to other people about it. I kind of kept it to myself because I didn't realize. I mean, I know that your relationship with God is just between you and him, but that doesn't mean you can't ask for other people, like, get encouraged by other people. And I didn't really look for that because I didn't think they'd understand. That's just, I don't know. And then there was just this one moment for me. Usually when I feel that kind of doubt, I decide to just pray, like just saying everything. If I'm angry, I say that I'm angry about something. There was one night where I decided, you know what? I'm going to try and pull an all-nighter and just pray all night. Now, I didn't end up doing it, but I understand pretty late. I wasn't like, I didn't talk to God for like hours. Like for the first couple hours, I kind of talked. But after that, it was just me writing down just random things that come into my head that kind of kept the connection with me and God still going until I just I couldn't do it anymore and I fell asleep by myself. But it was at that moment where I also, broke down because I had it all bottled up inside of me. And I was just talking to God and I just said some word that just triggered just me just breaking down. And I couldn't breathe for like minutes because of how broken I was. And I didn't even realize that. I didn't look for other people's advice because I didn't think they could help me. And I wanted God to show something, like a sign that he's real, but I didn't do anything to seek that. You can't just ask God to give you a sign that he's real if you're just in your room reading your Bible and that's it. You have to, God God will show you that he's real through like when you're doing things for him, when you're ministering, when you're creating relationships with other people. That's when you'll see his power for real, when you're working for him. Because if you're just inside of your room minding your own business, doing nothing for God, it's kind of hard for him to show you his power when you're not really seeking that. And that was with me. I wasn't really seeking that, but I was asking for him to do something that I wasn't doing my end of the bargain. I was expecting him to do all the work, and he could, but that wouldn't be very beneficial for me in the long run. And after that, I realized that I really need to do something about this. And I guess I realized that I needed to do things for God, like work for him, through a sermon that I heard from a pastor. And I really felt God was talking to me through that pastor, because he kind of answered all the questions that I was asking God through my prayers. And it was so refreshing knowing that those questions were finally answered, and now all I have to do is actually do something about that. And that's kind of that's the stage that I'm at right now, kind of doing something about it, and actually kind of picking myself up again. Well, letting God pick me up again, not just doing everything by myself.
Yeah, and I was thinking about what you said about not telling anybody about your doubts. I feel like a lot of people think that, they don't realize that other people have the same doubts as they do, like, oh, no one, nobody in my church really doubts that they love God, I must be the only one. Nobody ever talks about it, so, it just must be me. But once you start opening up to people and you tell them, or you talk to somebody that you trust, and they might say, hey, yeah, I know I've struggled with that too, here's what I did to get out of it, or, let me pray with you, let me help you. I think that, is a really good thing, is you just don't realize that other people struggle too, so.
I like what you said just now, Madeline. I think there hasn't been a lot of vulnerability or sincerity between Christians, in the church or in communities, that, like, I think that how I see it, that when I've heard it said, or just perceive how people handle or talk with somebody who has doubt, is like, well, you shouldn't have any doubts, because if you have any doubts, there's something wrong with your faith. Like, Christians don't have doubts, but that's farther from the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in order for you to have faith, like, there has to be an ounce, or so there has to be the opportunity to doubt something, right? Otherwise, then, like, it's all for certain. No, like, there's an opportunity for doubting. It's what you do with the doubt that then, I guess, can lead you one way or the other, right? Some people, like, if they can't really resolve all their doubts, then they're like, well, this isn't for me. Well, there's a lot of times when we, like, I don't know, there's sometimes even when I'm thinking about, like, getting it, like, when early on in my relationship with my wife, and I love my wife, but sometimes, like, I would doubt, like, I grew up in a home where, like, I grew up in a broken home. And so all that I thought was when my parents would get in fights, like, I would just like tremble, right? And, like, I doubted that they were going to stay together, and they did. But anyway, it was a struggle. But so then whenever I got in a fight with my wife, it's like, man, like, is this really going to work? Like, if we're going to be like this forever, then, like, I might as well not even stay. Like, I'm doubting my decision. But at the end of the day, like, we had to believe that she was there for me and I was there for her, and we had each other's backs, and we were able to come out of that situation with more confidence in one another, and in the commitment that we made. And so I think that also helps with my relationship with God, is that, like, even when doubts happen, I can trust that God will be with me and will guide me, and people around me can also pray for me. And I think that, going back to what you guys were saying, and being vulnerable and being open. And another thing too that I think about is, for me, I believe what the Bible Like, I believe that what the Bible is saying in the stories that I read are true. Like, I don't doubt that they are. Like, because I've seen multiple times that the Bible has proven to be true for what it is. Okay. And if I think about the stories, I think about Moses, I think about Abraham, I think about again, just a number of different people. If I believe that God was able to be with them through their struggles, like, and they're the heroes of faith that I have, like, how much more will God also do the same, and maybe in a different way with me, to raise me up and to help me trust in Him more fully. There's a lot of things that the Bible doesn't answer, and that's okay. I'm good with that, because there's a lot of things in the world that I don't really understand, but I take it for granted. I take it like, okay, well, like, that's what people said, so I'm cool. I don't have to understand it all.
Yeah, that's actually it's funny because even though while I was doubting God, I was still talking to him, knowing that he was listening to me. So like it's funny how that works, because like I guess when you have those morals kind of taught to you, it's like kind of all you believe, really. Like, if you don't believe in God, then what do I believe in? Kind of like, I guess that was me, since I was raised as a Christian. I guess for me, if I don't really believe in God, I don't know what my life means anymore. I don't really have any meaning anymore if I don't believe in God. So even when I was doubting God's existence, I was still talking to him, knowing that he was there, which is funny, because then why am I asking for proof, you know? And I feel like God, I don't know, it's funny when I think about it now, because like God was probably like looking at me thinking like, what are you doing? It's funny.
Let's see. What is the best way to share your faith? There's two questions in one. So, like, what is the best way to share your faith, and why can Christians be afraid to share it?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, I know, I kind of mumbled that. What is the best way to share your faith, and why can Christians be afraid to share their faith? Yeah. I think. Oh, sorry. I think the best way to share is to like meet people where they're at and meet their needs. I hear people who call porter and people who hand out glow tracts and hey, do you want a Bible study? I think that's great, but I think it's kind of a turnoff for a lot of people. It's kind of impersonal to just walk up to someone and say, here's a track, it's kind of like you're pushing your agenda on them. So I think I've always thought that the best way to reach people and to share your faith is by meeting them where they're at. Are they homeless? Do they need somewhere to stay? Do they not have any money for food for the week? Their spouse just lost their job and, they're, down on their luck, having someone meet their need and provide them with something that they're lacking and showing that we care about them. That's really telling about your character and like what you believe, because not everybody will do that. Good people who aren't Christian do those things all the time too. But, doing something like that, I feel, is a lot more, you can bridge the gap and someone will be a lot more comfortable talking about Christ than Christianity if they know that you are a trustworthy and relatable person, that you aren't going to be pushy on them. So, yeah. And I think a lot of people are afraid to share their faith because it can be scary to just like talk about it, because there's always that, rejection, possibility of someone saying, F off, I don't want to know anything about that, I just don't want anything to do with it. And kind of going back to like our, what we talked about a little bit earlier about people judging you before they get to know you, I think that's hard for a lot of people, is facing that possibility of rejection, which you will be turned away. I mean, that's, not everyone is going to want to know Christ. So I think that can be kind of hard. So
I would say our demeanor too, what I would say is like a best way or a good way that I think is something that we do or we should do is I know that my demeanor, like I speak a lot about the peace or like the assurance or the hope that I have. Right? If I'm, I remember I used to work at Applebee's back in California when I was younger, and almost right after I got out of high school, I started working there. It was so much fun, so much fun. But I remember, like, during those times, like, I was also just growing in my faith, and I was really taking my faith a lot more seriously. And I remember, like, my girlfriend and I were having problems. Here I am with my relationships, man. So I would have struggles, and then, like, the bartender her name was Linda. She was super, super cool. She was always like, "Hey, what's up, Kevin?" Like, cause I would always just be cheerful. Like, she's like, "What's up with you? Like, why are you always like this?" And I'm like, "I'm just a happy person." But also because I was a Christian, but I was like, I'm a Christian, right? But one time she called me out and she was like, "Wait, like, I was really struggling down in the dumps." And she's like, "Wait, you're a Christian? Like, and you're really struggling?" And she started observing me a lot more about like how I acted and how I was. And again, like, not that Christians are always like happy or lucky and nothing phases them. Like, no, we do get phased. We do struggle, right? But I think that it's what we do with that doubt or with those struggles. But what I'm trying to say is that, like, my demeanor counted a lot or mattered a lot to the people who started to see me, who didn't believe in God, but they saw who I was and were willing to look at me and give me grace, but also they saw what it was like for a person to profess that they were a Christian and behave and feel and have a positive demeanor and outlook on life. So that's amazing.
Yeah. So pretty much it's like, I guess I agree with the pastor and Madeline, because it's like the way you are or how you act, your demeanor is really important, because people actually notice that, especially when you say you're a Christian. They want to see if you really are a Christian. And then it's all about meeting people, at eye level, understanding where they're coming from. Because I feel like a Christian should never judge people for not wanting to be a Christian, because they have those opinions for a reason, because of things that they've, their experiences in life. And because of those tough experiences, they probably made the decision that they didn't want to be a Christian. They didn't really, they just have so many doubts, and they're just so hurt. And I mean, I can't blame them. It's, if you've gone through really bad experiences, like, it's hard to continue to believe in a God that you don't always see. And I understand that can be a problem. So, like, a Christian should never judge someone for their opinions or what they believe in, because they believe it for a reason, And I feel like the most important thing is just showing what it's like to be a Christian. You don't necessarily have to preach sermons in the middle of the street. People don't really like that. It's all about, saying that you're a Christian and then actually showing it with your attitude. Like you said, Christians aren't always happy. We may have, we may be fulfilled, but that doesn't mean we're just always happy. But we have joy, which is different from happiness, because joy is like yes, you're happy in the good times, but you have hope in the bad times. You know, it's like it's what you do, what you do with those bad experiences and the stuff that life throws at you. So it's all about showing that God is doing something big in your life, and that He's made a difference in your life, showing that to people, and then being there for people, just being a friend. You can't be friends with people who aren't Christian. There is no rule that says you can't. That just makes no sense. How are we able to minister to people if we can't be friends with people who aren't Christians? Like I have tons of friends with people who are Christians, and then that's when the hard part comes in. Like the hardest thing about ministering is the fact that you might lose friends. They might make fun of you. They might, ridicule you or something like that. You'll get refused. And also just having the confidence to just go out there and stand firm in what you believe in. Because a lot of people don't really have that confidence. And I don't completely have that confidence either. Like, I can't just go out there and talk to anybody about what I believe in, like, easily. Like, my dad can. Like, every time we go out cleaning, he's able to just talk to people and everything. That I can't do that. I'm not that extroverted to do that. And it's like, the more I read the Bible, the more I want to do it, because it's like the knowledge that you get from the Bible is different from the knowledge that you get from school or anything like that. It's like the knowledge you get from the Bible is just something that you just can't contain to yourself. And if you do, it's like it's not going to go anywhere, and it won't mean anything to you then. It's like if you don't share that knowledge, it's not going to mean anything to you afterwards, even if you think it does. Like, and I think that's what happened to me. I wasn't spending enough time sharing it to other people. So then at first it did mean something to me, but then it just started kind of being insignificant because I wasn't sharing it with people. And I think that's probably the main causes of why a lot of young Christians don't have that relationship with God, because they don't share that knowledge with other people.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. You have something to say, Kevin?
I just wanted to answer, like, I didn't answer the second part of the question. I like what Josue said about forgot that little part.
That's fine.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Anyway, I'll just answer the question. The hard part for me about sharing my Christianity is sometimes in seeing the flaws that I have as a Christian. Like, I'm supposed to behave as a Christian, and when I don't, like, I'm still like, do I give myself grace to share something? Okay, with my struggles, the sins or the difficulties that I face, right? Like, when I'm struggling, then I think, okay, like, I'm supposed to be sharing my testimony, or sharing, like, that I'm a Christian, or sharing my faith. But then it's like, well, like, am I good enough to share it? Does that make sense? Like, am I good enough to like, am I a good salesman for this thing if I really don't believe in this product? Well, no, like I know that God is working on my life, and because I know that I'm struggling, I'm looking up. I'm looking hopeful in being able to go past this, right? Like, Paul says that even when people don't mean to share the gospel, even when the gospel is, like, people use the gospel in illegitimate ways, the gospel is still preached. Like, the gospel can still have power, because, like, it's the power of God to try to reach people in their heart and in their mind. And
I like that.
Even when I struggle, even when I'm not as consistent with my Christianity as I should be, like, God is still able to work. And he says, look, in spite of who you are, like, I'm still able to work through you. Now, you and I have to fix it, right? You and I have to, like, hash it out, and you have to trust me with what you're struggling with. But, like, at the end of the day, God is able to work with me. And I think that can sound as both a benefit, because like God is there, but then the other side is like, well, like still trying to get over that hump of I'm not good enough, I'm all of this and I'm all of that. And that could be a deterrent for me, and just, well, I might as well not even say anything, because until I'm good, until I'm holier, then I'll be able to share. And I think
like until I'm perfect, like, I can't share my faith until I read my Bible, 3 hours a day, I pray constantly, and I don't sin. Then I can share my faith because I'm perfect. Yeah. 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 Oh, yeah. Like, you really, like, you can share your faith, even if you just became a Christian, like, you're a baby Christian, you can share your faith because, realistically, we're all going to make mistakes and we're all going to sin, and, there may be once in a while where we might not represent Christ very well, but I think it's an even worse sin to not share your faith. And then for someone to say, oh, wow, you were a Christian? I had no idea, like you never talk about it, or you never, you never tell me about what you believe in, and you don't act that way, So, yeah. We all make mistakes. It's what we do after we've made the mistakes, like, do we admit that we did wrong and that we may have not represented Christ very well? Yeah. Like, I think that's a bigger testimony, is when we, like, own up to our mistake and say, look, friend, I know I, did something to offend you or hurt you, when you admit that and you ask for forgiveness, like, that's a bigger testimony, I feel like. So, we kind of went over the next question about how solid your faith is in Christ before you can share it. Like, you can share it whenever. Like, you can share it whenever. Like, as long as there's no rule. If you have a relationship with Christ, you can share it whenever. I do think that a lot of people who don't have a real relationship with Christ, like what's the word? What am I trying to think of? Those preachers that have like the mega billion churches, and they're like, COVID-19, or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, I forgot his name. Yeah, but like he was like with a bunch of pastors, and he was like, in the name of Jesus, COVID-19, I'll blow you away, or something like that. But like,
I have to watch that. I've never seen that.
Yeah. But like, I think that's where a lot of people are afraid to share their faith, is when they see like people like that, and they think, well, maybe, I shouldn't share my faith because maybe I'm coming off as fake, or I'm coming off as, somebody who wasn't authentic, But yeah, I think, if you have a relationship with Christ, you shouldn't be afraid to share your faith. God will put the words in your mouth, and he will speak through you, and he will make sure that his name isn't tarnished, So, the very last question that we have is, how do you maintain integrity around your non-Christian friends? Which is kind of what we were talking about anyway, like, how do you be a Christian around people who aren't Christian? How do you maintain your moral code around, let's say you have friends that like to drink, or, smoke weed, or, use vulgar language, or, things like that. How do you represent Christ in that friend group?
Well, I feel like it's a lot. The problem is a lot like peer pressure, which is what everybody goes through, not just Christians. And it's important to remember that if you do fall into temptation, and you do something that's not good, it's important not to beat yourself up about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, remember that that what you did wasn't right. But I feel like a true Christian should never beat themselves up about what they did. Maybe they can have a heart-to-heart conversation with Jesus Christ and regret what they've done. But then, after that, have faith that you're forgiven, and keep moving and move on from that, and try not to do it again. I feel like a lot of people think that Christians beat themselves up so much, and some do, and that's just because they believe that they have to. I don't believe that I don't have to beat myself up if I sin, because I do it all the time. And I know that God is always there to forgive me when I ask for it. And I just have to ask for him, sincerely, and really want that forgiveness. And I know that he'll forgive me, even if I don't feel like he's forgiven me. I know that he has. And I guess you just really have to have that solid relationship with God to really be able to control yourself in a good way. Because if you don't have that good relationship with God, then it's hard to just resist temptation by yourself. But when you put Christ into the equation, then it's a lot easier to resist temptation, because you know that when you feel like you want to do something that's not right, you involve God right away. You either pray about it, for help, or you do something to get your mind off of it. But it's having that first reaction to when that temptation comes. When you feel a certain way, are you going to move towards that temptation, or are you going to do something to distract you from that temptation? Are you going to ask for help right away, or you just are not going to do anything about it? So I guess it's what you do and how you train your mind to react in those tough situations.
I would say, and think about my own life. I had during high school, when I was working at actually a little bit before I worked at Applebee's, I worked at a sandwich shop called Togo's. The friends that I had then actually I think about them quite often, because they were really there for me when I was struggling with just home life and stuff with my parents. And I would hang out with them. Like in high school, I went to a public high school. I didn't party. That was just not my thing. Not because like I didn't want to go out. It's just that I just chose not to do that stuff. But after like towards the end of high school, like that's when I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go out and hang out with my friends, just like to be with them, right? And they would take me to parties, and they would introduce me to some of their friends, and then they'd offer me beers or alcohol or weed, and I'm like, no. And some of those people who were friends of theirs would be like, who's this dude? Like, why is he even here? Like, he's kind of square. And my friends would stand up for me, and they would say, wait, bro, like, you don't even know him. Like, just leave him alone. Like, he's good. Like, just, he's solid. Like, he's cool. He's our DD, right? So I think about this question about non-Christian friends. Like, if you have non-Christian friends and they're pressuring you to do something that would be against your integrity, then I don't know if they're really your friends.
Yeah.
They'll stand up for you. And again, like, not that non-Christian friends won't influence you to do certain things or whatever, but they also know by what you allow for them to know, right? If they know that you're a solid Christian, but like you are there for them and like you don't judge them, but you share from your heart, and they can sincerely see that for you. They like, a friendship takes two ways, right? You have to be you have to be willing to be their friend. And they also have to be willing to be your friend as well. And if they're willing enough to say, okay, I'm a non-Christian, but I'm gonna have a Christian friend, then they also have to put up to a certain degree what you're about, right? And if they're not willing to do that, then they're not really friends of yours, Right? And just think about, just those situations that I found myself in, that my friends stood up for me. And even though I can say, nah, like I'm not willing to drink, I'm not willing to smoke. They stood up for me because they valued my relationship with them and they knew what I was about. And so I think that was also helpful.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think even if you're not a Christian, I think this applies to like any relationship. If the other person doesn't value what you believe in, that you need to find new friends, or a new relationship or whatever. Like if they don't even care about you to like value what you believe and respect in what you believe, that's pretty telling on how they view you, So I think, I think you should be careful who you end up being friends with, because ultimately they will influence you more than you think they do. So I think, just be wise about who you were friends with. And, if you're friends with people who aren't necessarily good for you in your relationship with God, don't cut them off, but maybe spend less time with them, So.
And you don't necessarily have to have like friends that, like, for example, like your friends don't have to believe in what you believe in.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, like I respect what you believe in and you respect what I believe in. It's just mutual respect. And when two friends can do that, that's great. If one friend doesn't respect what you believe in and tries to, get you to do something that's not right for you, that's not a good friend. He doesn't respect your values. And so having a friend like that that respects what you believe in is good.
Yeah, I have a friend group, and there's one person in particular, like they are a hardcore atheist and they hate Christians. But I'm a Christian, and they don't I don't want to say attack me, but they don't make me feel bad for being a Christian. They talk about other Christians and how, they're hypocrites and they're the worst people on earth, but you're okay, you're fine, yeah. So, yeah. So that was the end of our question segment. Our next segment is a question to the listeners. We only had 2 submissions, but we're just starting out, so we'll still read them anyway. So we asked a question earlier today to our Instagram page. The question was, how would you encourage someone who wants to be a Christian but isn't sure where to start? So we had 2 submissions. One from Amy. She said, encourage them to come to church events or hang out with other Christians. It helps to be around people who are living the way you'd like to live. Yeah. And then the other one was Adele. She said, watch The Chosen, which I think it's like a TV or like an app. Yeah. Which I think I saw I don't think I saw any of it, but I see like ads for it. She said it'll introduce you to Jesus, who he is, in a real, tangible, and compassionate way. Yeah. So, yeah, I'll have to check that out. I haven't seen that, so.
The creators of that app did an amazing job. It's really good.
Oh, it's an app, so it's on your phone?
Yeah, and how it works is you're able to pay for a subscription, but the money that you pay with helps other people to be able to watch that, because it's not necessarily free.
Yeah.
But there's donors, which are people who buy the subscription, and that money that they get from people buying the subscription goes to people who don't have a subscription and are able to watch the shows for free.
Oh, that's cool.
So if you buy a subscription, you don't need to rely on other people's, donating. You have the shows already, but you also help other people to be able to watch the shows who don't have the money to pay for it. That's
pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, Amy and I are actually going to watch it tonight, because it was really cool. The little bit that I had seen, so.
Yeah. All right, and then our last segment is if we have any final thoughts or, something that we want to say to you, the viewer. Oh, sorry, I'm holding a clip. To you, the viewer, if we have any last statements, and then we'll end off with a prayer. I can start. I think, if you, being a Christian in general is hard, but being a young person and being a Christian, I feel like in today's day and age is also even more so difficult. So I think if you, want to be a Christian, I would say just go for it. Find, a friend group, find a church that, you want to go to and that you feel welcome, and work on your relationship with God. Join a Bible study, have that fellowship, and, pray to God and share your faith in some capacity. Start off small. If you're afraid, that's okay. God will give you the strength to overcome that. So,
guess for me would be yourself. Glorify God, honor God with what you're passionate about. If you love music, then glorify God with music. If you love taking pictures or making videos or painting, honor God with that stuff. If you love talking to people up front, honor God with doing that. Just be yourself. Honor God with your passions, and just love. Love is what is God. God is love, and it's important that us Christians really remember that and try to love everyone, no matter who they are, no matter what their beliefs are.
Anything worthwhile is going to have to take sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And with regards to the Christian message, there's a God who cared and loved you so much that he was willing to sacrifice for you. And that sacrifice is not just like a gift from God. It is a gift from God, but it also gives you an opportunity to be able to sacrifice for somebody else, time, energy, and space, where you're able to do something for somebody else without necessarily wanting anything in return. And it's an opportunity to be able to see yourself in a new way, to be able to stretch you, even as a young person. Young people can be sincere Christians, can be strong Christians. It's not just for the older people. It's not just for the retired. No, it's for the young person who wants to see something different in their life than the trajectory that they've. That's what I would say.
do you want to have a prayer? I don't know who wants to say it. Pastor Kevin had the first one, so.
All right.
Up to you, Edward.
I'll pray.
Okay.
All right. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to record our first podcast. It was a lot of fun. It was really beneficial for the three of us. I learned a lot, and I'm sure everybody else did too. Bless this podcast, Lord. Help it to reach many, many people, and just help us to believe in you, amidst all the doubts, all the peer pressure, everything, Lord. The world is a hard place to live in, but we're thankful that we have someone like you watching over us and blessing us with so many things in our lives, Lord. Thank you again for this life and for the knowledge and for all the good that you've done. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen. All right, well, God bless. Hope everyone has a good week, and we'll see you next week with a new podcast. Do we have what we're talking about next week?
I think it was dating, right?
I think it's dating, yeah. So next week we're going to be talking about dating. So tune in for that. Yeah. So, all right, goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.